It's been over 4 years since the EU has started cutting all of its ties to Russia. Of course, it started earlier, but it intensified with the beginning of the Russian special military operation in Ukraine, and it has been most significant in the area of energy. So, starting from the summer of 2022, EU has started shifting from Russian energy to other sources, and Russia has consequently started searching for new markets for its energy. So, 4 years later, we have a situation that Russia has adapted much better than the EU in the newly met circumstances. So, Asian countries, China first of all, but also Turkey, India and others have been the main beneficiaries of this shift and have been the main buyers of Russian energy, including natural gas, oil and LNG. On the other hand, the EU has had much more trouble in compensating for Russian energy and has done so in buying from other countries such as Norway, the United States, Azerbaijan and other countries in Africa and Asia. The biggest shift was in the LNG, since it has been heavily dependent on this form of energy and its import from the United States of America, although this presents a lot more expensive and less sufficient and less stable form of supply chain. But it resembles the politics that the EU has been leading for the past few years, which is basically destructive for their own interest, but totally aligned with the agenda of Washington. The EU is currently stuck in a lose-lose situation. Its ties to Russia are being cut off every single day more and more, and it is going basically on a war path with Russia for the interest of Washington, and at the same time it is being more and more dependent on that same Washington in terms of energy, but also military, geopolitics and everything else. On the other hand, Russia, as said earlier, has found a way to surpass the European markets which was once heavily relying on, and even the US, who is pressuring EU to further sanction Russia and use them as a proxy in the war against Russia. Even the US has found a way to remain in a basic normal relationship with Russia, have normal bilateral cooperation and even start fixing their relationship in the past few years, despite the war in Ukraine being fought on. So for EU, the dilemma is simple. They will either stick to the current policy and keep being devastated from inside and out, being forced to bleed out as a proxy in the war is Washington leading against Russia, or a new leadership in Europe will emerge and try to change something in the better direction for the EU countries and the EU in general. Try to make better communications to Russians, try to re-establish the broken relations, try to get that cheap energy again, which was the driving factor of the whole European economy, especially Germany as the biggest and most important country in the European Union, and try to separate themselves as much as possible from the United States and to stop being their basically proxy like Ukraine, only on a larger and more important scale.